met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas, having it to see and listen to remember and accept. I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Do I get?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
Well, while that's coming over,
Oh, sorry.
one little announcement. It's not an announcement. It's just, if, in case you're wondering what's wrong with my finger, because it's sort of obviously here. I had surgery on a knuckle to remove a cyst and bone spurs and mess around with some of the nerves a little over a week ago. So I'll have this on for until next Tuesday and then see the doctor again and see where we go. But I think it's doing well. And I have a request. Would you three come bring your chairs forward? You're so far away. Let's be more intimate here. It's hard for me to talk to you when you're so far away. Well, it's not hard, but it's more pleasant if we're all closer. And while they're moving, the other thing I wanted to say is that during the solstice service today, toward the end, when we have there'll be a place in the service, or there'll be a time for you to share, if you wish. It's not mandatory. Any words or phrases of blessings for just this turning of the seasons. So as we move actually from fall into true winter, that's what happens. So just that's a little heads up. Okay, so Chris began our sitting today with the words true peace work. And I thought, that's lovely. And I just sort of let the words, that phrase, reverberate throughout my sitting. It just was there because perhaps every moment of our lives and how we live is true peace work. So from the book, I was asked to choose an essay to speak about. And I didn't have the book. I just had sort of the list of the table of contents. So I randomly chose one. I chose it because I think Charles Johnson is an interesting person, though I don't know a lot about him. But so I chose his essay. That's the sole reason. But it turns out it's really great. It's a wonderful essay. It's called Be Peace Embodied. And what I'm going to do today is take the essence of it and share that with you. And then I'm actually going to share another reading, not from that book, that I came across that seems to complement it and really help at this time of solstice. But from True Peace Work, he wrote this in 2004, right around the time of the presidential elections then. And he starts out by saying how wonderful that we have a government where we all get wound up and really, talk to each other and think about what's important. What direction do we want to go in our communal lives as a nation? And he spends a good bit of time talking about that and how it's wonderful. But then he goes on to say, but there are pitfalls. There's pitfalls because there's pitfalls all the time among human beings. And he says, after praising our 4-year process of our government, he says, yet for all its virtues, this necessary process, which the media frequently presents as a highly competitive battle or war, can fuel the most ugly partisan passions, fears, frustrations, incivility, and forms of dualism we are likely to find in the realm of samsara. I think we can all relate to every single one of those words and of those emotions, and having experienced that. And now we're not exactly in an election year, but we seem to be perpetually. And there's a lot of contention. And I notice in myself a lot of solidifying and demonizing and fear and frustration, not incivility yet, but one could go there, I suppose. So all of this is something we have to reckon with and work with in our lives and in our practice. And he speaks of many things in his essay, but the main thrust that I want to bring forward that undergirds all of it is he talks about a basic teaching of Buddhism, which is the three marks of existence. And for a long time, I couldn't remember those, but now they're easy. And it's really helpful to keep them front and center in my consciousness. And they are impermanence, like everything's changing every second. My stomach isn't digesting the same as it was an hour ago. We're all different. Everything's changing. And this is helpful because we realize that all my ideas about this situation or that, or we're going to hell in a handbasket or whatever it is, well, don't solidify. Everything's impermanent. Things are shifting. There are causes and conditions of which we do not really know all of them. So impermanence is just really important. And then the second mark is suffering. And he speaks of it as clinging to our solidified ideas about this is right, that's wrong, this is what a good person would do, that's what a wretch is. The Buddha used the word wretch sometimes. I love that word, what a wretch might do. But we solidify and cling to our view rather than opening our hearts, remembering impermanence too, and being curious about what's going on. Why do people in the Central Valley believe one way or want this set of things, whereas I want, say, regarding water or conservation or different things, I have a different idea. I'm not curious. We need to be curious. And this truth of suffering, where we remember, oh yeah, clinging, that brings suffering. Let my heart be open and to ask questions. Be curious. Being curious and trying to understand another person does not mean agreement. It never means agreement. But it does mean a we connection, which leads into the third mark. It's no self, or I like to think of it as no separate self. Empty of a separate self. In other words, we're all connected. You know that. We talk about this all the time. So this isn't like new rocket science for us. We talk about it. But to bring it into your heart and mind as you're walking around, as you're reading the newspaper, as you're considering what to do in terms of how to respond to the challenges of our day, keeping these three marks of existence in your being is really important. And as he's talking about this, he speaks of how we're all in this together. And he speaks of the jewel net of Indra. We've talked about that too. And interbeing. And then he coined a little phrase that I like, that I may try to keep in front of my mind, because I have to keep it simple. He speaks of reality as we relation. I think that's lovely. It's warm, Interbeing is great, but it's a little heady to me. We relation. And remembering that is important. And then he quotes Martin Luther King Jr., some of his writing right after the Montgomery bus boycott ended. And there was great suffering during that boycott. But Martin Luther King Jr. says, we must seek an integration based on mutual respect. As we go back to the buses, let us be loving enough to turn an enemy into a friend. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. And King called this mutuality the beloved community. And I love that language. We're all tied in a single garment of destiny. If you can take that in, breathe with it in some of your meditation time, that's peace work. And maybe meditate on what does this mean, the beloved community? Well, as I practice with this, I discovered and opened my heart to curiosity and everything. I start to feel kind of joyful. Even in the midst of a lot of pain, some joy arises. And then, perhaps synchronistically, I don't know, my wife, Lori, brought forward to me an article, actually a sermon called I Choose Joy by the Reverend Sophia Lyons, who's the pastor of the First Parish of Watertown, Massachusetts, Unitarian Universalist Church. And the sermon that Lori shared with me is based um, on a Mary Oliver poem called Don't Hesitate. You're familiar, you're familiar. Well, you're going to hear this. So I read it because Lori said, well, Marianne, you got to read this. And the poem was great. It's wonderful. And it starts out this sermon. And then the whole sermon, I felt further connected to that sense of joy. It's about joy. It's called I Choose Joy. And I thought I want to share this. So what you need to do now is relax, breathe, and just breathe and relax. And as I read, I'm going to read you the entire thing. I'm a good reader, so don't worry. It'll be fun, be good. But I want you to breathe with the words and relax and just trust all of it will enter you. But what you need to remember now in your life, what you really need to hear, that you will for sure retain consciously, whether it's just a word or a phrase, whatever. So enjoy. This is story time. And so I will just begin because it takes a little bit. So the poem, Don't Hesitate, by Mary Oliver. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything. But very likely, you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. So now the words of Reverend Sophia in her sermon. Some of you know that I am an early bird. I am just better in the mornings, and Tuesday mornings are my favorite. They fall after my Sabbath day on Monday, and I get a lot of joy out of waking up really early on these mornings. I usually rise when it is still dark out, and I make my coffee when everyone in my family is still asleep. And I sit outside on the porch, no matter the weather, and do my best to just breathe. Say, I am here, and welcome in the week. A practice I learned from the late Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh is to recite part of a short mindfulness verse that goes, quote, waking up this morning, I smile. 24-hour brand new hours are before me, unquote. Thich Nhat Hanh says, quote, what better way to start the day than with a smile? Your smile affirms your awareness and determination to live in peace and joy. So, he says, look deeply and smile, unquote. Well, so now you have a picture in your mind of your well-rested minister sitting on her porch under the morning stars, blissed out and smiling, right? Sometimes I am this. I am often this. And sometimes I am not. I do this practice for a reason. I need it. A dear friend of mine once said to me that her joy was hard earned. I love this. Me too. It is hard earned and something I have to work at cultivating every day against all odds. And as with any spiritual discipline worth its weight, it demands consistency and discipline. So, this is where I tell you that I come from a long line of expert problematizers. I don't know one member of my family on any side of my tree who isn't, bless their hearts, an Eeyore or a piglet. Do I have any Winnie the Pooh fans in the house? For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, I come from a people who lived their lives more or less waiting for the other shoe to drop, and who were masterful, truly masterful, at preparing themselves at all times for the absolute worst. Gloom and doom, those are the Eeyores. Or feverishly anxious, those are my piglets. Many are a winning combination of both. And my dear ancestors spent their days toiling over the state of their lives and the state of the world and knocking on wood when good news or any overt expressions of contentment or joy were proclaimed, for fear of jinxing things. Don't tempt fate, they would say. I am trying to undo this knot. Trying to change the legacy here. We get to do that, change legacies. And this is hard because we live in and have inherited a world where joylessness and doom, waiting for the other shoe to drop, is a commonplace orientation to most everything. Our culture is steeped in it. And this is why we need wise ones to teach us about perspective, like Thich Nhat Hanh, and his healing practice of simply, radically smiling. Or His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Well, I dropped the ball this morning and left their book home, The Book of Joy. I had planned to hold it up for you so you could see them on the cover, facing each other, laughing. The Book of Joy. This is a book to order and pick up from the library. They write in the introduction, quote, to celebrate one of our special birthdays, we met for a week in Dharamsala in 2016 to enjoy our friendship and to create something that we hope will be a birthday gift for others. So much of life is spent in sadness, stress, and suffering. Yet, no dark fate determines the future. We do. Each day and each moment, we are able to create and recreate our lives and the very quality of human life on our planet. This is the power we wield. Take that in, unquote there. Take that in. No dark fate determines the future. We do. Each day and each moment, we are able to create and recreate our lives and the very quality of human life on our planet. This is the power we wield. we get to alter the legacy. And this book spends a few hundred pages documenting a conversation between these two spiritual leaders. these are deeply these are deeply religious men with completely different theologies, a theist and a non-theist, and yet are united in the healing, courageous, salvific power of joy. And these are men who know suffering. These are people who have lived it and whose people live it. So these are the kind of people I need to teach me about joy. So, what is joy exactly? Joy is not just about having more fun, and it's not about feeling happier. Happiness is about an external thing in our present environment that brings us a feeling of elation. And happiness is all about me. I feel happy when they have my favorite mint chocolate chip ice cream at the store. And this is real. Joy, however, is a spiritual state of mind and being. Joy transcends the self. Joy spreads itself out to the world and sees the wholeness of the thing. Joy is not dependent on anyone or anything. It's not dependent on my ice cream being in stock or not. And joy, according to Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, is made up by three simple ingredients: love, compassion, and generosity. Love of self and love of all beings equals joy. Compassion for self and compassion for all living beings equals joy. Generosity towards self and toward all living beings equals joy. All of this, they say, weaves together a life that feels meaningful and connected. And a life rich with meaning and connection is a life rich with joy. And we don't practice all of this to just create joy for ourselves. Remember, joy transcends the self and makes of us, these are Archbishop Tutu's words, quote, a reservoir of joy, an oasis of peace that can ripple out towards all around us, unquote. Yes, joy is contagious. And the Archbishop also says, quote, discovering joy does not save us from the inevitability of hardship and heartbreak. In fact, we may cry more easily, but we will laugh more easily too. Perhaps we are just more alive. Yet as we discover more joy, we can face suffering in a way that ennobles rather than embitters. We have hardship without becoming hard. We have heartbreak without being broken, unquote. So joy keeps us from becoming brittle in spirit. We can feel happiness, but be so very brittle in spirit. Not so with joy. And some of you will ask, how in the world, Reverend Sophia, can we afford to be joyful? The world's on fire. It is our duty and what our faith calls us towards to be embittered and enraged. No, some of you might say, joy is the luxury of the privileged, apathetic people. And I hear you. And I want to caution us all, myself included. I do not preach from a pulpit on high here. I want to caution us all against giving up our right to joy in the name of engagement with the news of the day or doing the work of justice. I want to caution us all against settling for crumbs in the name of being a good citizen. let us take care to not trample or trade away our joy. For we cannot do good work in the world without it. And I hope you hear me when I say that. Interestingly, despair and hopelessness, brittleness of spirit, they don't turn us outwards towards each other. They often turn us inwards. Whereas love and compassion and generosity, hope and joy, these things send us into the arms of others. Those, those are Archbishop Tutu's words. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Maya Angelou, Cornel West, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Dalai Lama, Jesus, Desmond Tutu, all of these wise, wise spiritual leaders teach us that love, compassion, generosity, hope, joy, these are the things that in the end will save us, heal us, transcend us. And they all require faith in a moral and good universe whose arc is long and always bends towards justice, and which is forever teaching us to not fear tempting fate, but rather to believe in human goodness. In humans' goodness being the powerful stuff that will shape it. This is the power we wield. And I lean on the great spirit that I call God. Please translate that word for yourselves to guide me in this deep and faithful knowing. The Dalai Lama says that yes, there are many, many things that can depress us, but there are also very many things that are fantastic about our world. Unfortunately, the media do not report on these because they aren't seen as news, the Dalai Lama says. He goes on, it is easy to feel like our basic human nature is to kill and be corrupt, but we must keep a more holistic view. We must have a sense of proportion and perspective. Unquote. Not rose-colored glasses or head in the sand thinking, but proportion. Meditate on this. There are billions of people in this world being generous, kind, and loving to one another. Right now, billions. Can you allow this to not erase the bad news, but just sit there next to it? Can you courageously invite yourself to experience joy at the thought of this? The reason this is hard is because we have become habituated to despair. It is our default setting. And we have settled for crumbs when joy is meant to be a fully nourishing meal. I want you to think about this question over the coming things. Why have we settled for so little? There's a lot of history in the answer. A lot of oppressive systems at work here, a lot of religious doctrine that's been twisted, abused, and defiled in this query. Why have we settled for crumbs? There's a lot about our families, our ancestors, what they put in place to survive as the oppressed and the oppressor in this waiting for the other shoe to drop thinking. Understanding that in this question and in the daily and radical act of choosing joy, we do not shut the door on any of this, we open it. Understanding that choosing joy thrusts us into the arms of one another, even the stranger or our enemies, and makes of us oases of peace that ripple out to all of those around us. Understanding that choosing joy is about courageously saying, yes, I choose hope, and I will not, in the words of Martin Luther King Jr., quote, I will not bow before the altar of hate and condemnation and hopelessness and retaliation, unquote, anymore. I choose hope. I choose love. I choose faith. I choose joy. and I'm going to keep on until I find it. Hold on. So let's listen once more to the words of our poet. Allow this to be our closing prayer, one that I hope you will carry out with you today. Hold for yourself and gift to your fellows. Don't Hesitate by Mary Oliver. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. So those are the words of Reverend Sophia and Mary Oliver, and words that along with the 3 marks of existence, that I'm really taking to heart as we are in this season of less light in the world. And sometimes I tend toward despair. I look at that despair and with curiosity. And then I also cultivate joy, generosity, compassion, gratitude as best I can to kind of keep that spark going so it can become a whole fire to illumine myself. Each of us, we're not separate. So if I'm able to do that, we do it together. Or if you do it for me, with me. We are all in this together. It's we relation. So that's it. That's my talk. And I think we have, well, not my words, mostly Reverend Sophia. And thanks to Lori for bringing that to me. So we have time for groups. Let's see, when do we want to be back from? Let's give 10 minutes in the groups. That gives some slush time for getting back. And I would suggest pairs. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Pairs, so that in your pairs, say each person speak for 3 minutes, and then you'd have, or 4 minutes maybe, and then you'll have a couple extra. And if you happen to be a group of 3, because that's how it works out, then you got enough time.
Do you want to do the groups or you want me to?
I can do it.
You want to do it?
And the other thing for your groups, I just would say whatever arose, whatever struck you, whatever from this conversation today, how do you want to bring it out with your partner? What?
Whenever she does
I'm going to be in a group. Do you want
Yeah.
pair?
1 minute thing, with
Yeah.
the groups and call them back, I simultaneously ring the bell.
Oh, what a good
and
idea.
say, you have a minute.
So do you want to give me that bell?
I'm just going to make sure everybody gets in their rooms.
Yeah.
It's like
Everybody but Emma
Supposedly
seems.
everybody back at the same time.
Well, yeah, I think it pulls it back. I'm just gonna sit and relax a few moments.
I was also reading,
Oh,
I brought a Dharma statement, but I actually, that part where I choose whatever I choose.
I'll give you the.
Do you have it?
I have the whole head.
Because I was thinking that we could just do call and response with the Dharma statement.
You want where she's saying I choose Yeah. Okay, here it is. Let me come over there. I'll give it to you.
Just to make sure everybody got to their room.
Yeah, so you do it as you wish. You're the Doshi.
Sure.
Though you may have.
Actually,
Okay. Yeah. Lori had been. Let me come over. She actually found a YouTube thing of some kid speaking about the poem. That's how Lily came to the poem. She was such a sweet girl. She's so lovely. And the small kid, she's one of my favorite authors. She's written about 3 books. I don't know if you're familiar with all 3 of them. They're all really good. And now she's Parkinson's disease. And so she's in her upper 70s. And she's speaking very healthily about she's well of a plan. So Laura goes and tries to find the whole. And this is what he was this synchronous. You go in and then you push something else. Yeah.
And suddenly it's like the whole world out there.
Yeah. She shared it with me and we talked about it. And then I did a lot, so I thought it could work. Yeah. I'm not, well, didn't she put that in automatically? Let me ask. I'll ask. Oh, let me just check.
We are, so give me a 1 minute warning when it's
Do
time.
you want me,
to call
or
back.
do you want Chris to do it?
I can do it because we're gonna set,
I'll give you a
we'll
1
set
minute.
that computer up to capture the ceremony.
Okay, so I'll give you a 1 minute
Oh,
warning.
and let me make sure I stop taping. Whoopsie
I
daisy.
think you did.
Nope, I didn't, but that's all right.